If you want to trade like a rebel, you got to come to RebelCon 2022. It's going to be in Dallas, Texas, at the fabulous Four Seasons Resort. It will be more fun and more live trading than we've ever done before. That's why it's called RebelCon 2022. We're going to have barbecues and double the amount of live trading. The guest speakers, as soon as we announce those, this thing's going to be sold out, limited to 250 people. Sign up now for RebelCon 2022 at the Four Seasons in Dallas, Texas.
Welcome to the Rebellion.
Good morning. I'm Pete Najarian. Yes, this is the take for Market Rebellion. And yes, I am back. We did miss out yesterday. I had an unbelievable game plan planned out yesterday to visit some family members, and it went really, really well, but I apologize, I wasn't here. So let's just go back to Tuesday for 1 second as we got into yesterday's trade. But you go back to Tuesday, boy, the NASDAQ really was a huge dislocation from what was going on with the Dow itself. And that really was the statement of the day. It was down about 150 points for the NASDAQ. Meanwhile, the Dow down about 50 points, but nothing close percentage-wise in terms of that move. So that really was the distinction, and that really did stand out. On top of that, one other thing that stood out was the volume on Tuesday. On that down day, extremely low volume. We're talking about 33.5 million contracts. Well, put that up against what we were witnessing yesterday. We had the CPI number come out. We actually just catapulted up above 33,000. We were up over 500 points on the Dow, 535. We were up 300 points, almost a 3% move from the NASDAQ, a huge move. And oh, by the way, how was that volume? 43.8 million. That's a statement in and of itself. The volume came in with that move to the upside. That really, I think, does make a huge statement. We're talking about 10 million more contracts trading in the derivatives world. That is a huge number if you consider that each contract is measured into 100 shares, blah, blah, blah. That's a major jump. That was absolutely something that definitely stood out yesterday. Nat gas continues this trip to the upside. We look at oil itself, crude, continues this move to the upside. We were just not too long ago, 88, 89. Then we get to 90, then 91, yesterday around 91 and a half. Today, we're building on that even a little bit more. As I mentioned, those volumes, they were very strong. I look at the 2-year and the 10-year, not a whole lot to talk about over the last couple of days, just kind of hanging in there a little bit after a bit of a run to the upside, little bit of a pause. I look over at the price of nat gas at 820. That's pretty interesting. It just continues to climb, it seems like, each and every day. Every single sector yesterday closed in the green. Everything seemed to be positive. It sure at least felt that way. It wasn't exactly true, but it certainly did feel that way. You look at those sectors. I look at something like, for instance, the material space, a very strong move out of Freeport, Cliffs, that name. I love that name. Somebody was just hitting me up on social media about that name just this morning, 5-10 minutes ago. It has had a great run. We talked about when it was getting sold off, but then we started to see some option activity. Bought it as a stock and using that higher implied volatility to be able to sell options against that. It's something that's been a very great strategy for a long period of time for me. Certainly has been working out in Cliffs itself. U.S. Steel, part of that big run yesterday as well. Then you look over at Tesla and Amazon, sort of pushing up that consumer discretionary area. When I look and I see 5 different sectors all up 2% or more, that's a huge statement. So not only were we green, but we were green in a big way across the board. You look at the financials, they were strong. Industrials, they were strong. You look at Dow, you look at CAT, you look at Goldman, you look at JP Morgan. Across the board, we'd seen a lot of strength in technology. You look at Meta and Apple. And by the way, Apple pushing up on that 170 level even today. That's been a very big, swift mover to the upside as well. One of the leaders, certainly when we talk about technology. I look at the cruise ships yesterday. Wow, did they ever take off? They had a really nice performance yesterday, along with Etsy and Netflix. And then you look at Zscaler and all of these various names, Zooms and so forth, Datadog. You go into that category. Also, semiconductors, which had been under some serious pressure. We talked about what was going on with Micron. We talked about what happened with NVIDIA. Well, some of those names actually started to see a little bit of a bounce, a little bit of a better reaction yesterday as well. Marvell, NVIDIA did stand out for me. Had a little bit of a push in Disney as it went into earnings. And boy, did it have a nice earnings report last night. And what it's doing today to the upside certainly stands out. Dollar Tree a little bit weaker. I look at something like a Ralph Lauren. I looked at JD. Now, those Chinese names finally today are starting to make a little bit of a nice move also off of being in that negative camp that they've been in for a little while. We have had that huge run yesterday, and we've just added a little bit more to it, helped by a lot of things. So obviously, CPI yesterday, we've got PPI, we've got Disney. There's a lot of different factors that are actually pushing us into a situation where, again, very, very strong. So as we get into today, we started off up about 250 points in the pre-market, up about 100 points on the NASDAQ. We've essentially held and built onto that NASDAQ. It's been up about 150 points on the higher end. We also have seen that little bit of movement, even more so when we're looking at the Dow itself. It's actually, last I looked before coming on here, somewhere close to 250 to 300 points to the upside, kind of bouncing in that little range. But that's just a few ticks for a few stocks actually that are moving that thing around. There's no doubt about that. How about that volatility index? We talked about it. Could it get back under 20? We were just talking about this the other day. Certainly it did. We were yesterday in those 19s, today in the 19s, kind of fluttering back and forth. Sometimes we're ticking a little bit above 20. I look also at the VXN, the volatility of the NASDAQ. That has certainly fallen. That was holding in those mid 30s for a while. It got up and then it was still holding 30. Gave up 30, and here we are now at 26. So we're seeing those volatilities come down, and that's something we've been watching very, very closely and could create some very interesting opportunities. Bitcoin, how about that big jump? Another jump of a few percent once again, 24,700. Been talking about the fact that it's been in this bit of a range, starting to break out maybe a little of this range. Don't want to jump on that too quickly, but we were talking about that 19,000 to 24,000 and even a little bit closer of late 22,000 to 24,000. Here we are getting above that number as well. So that's something. I look over at crude in the 93s. That certainly is a statement after we were just talking about in the upper 80s. And then we started making that move over 90, starting to creep back up again. Disney up about 10%. Talking about a lot of different things, but what people should have, and this is exactly what they did focus on this one, was a lot less about what's going on in terms of that media side, a lot more to do with the actual Disney, the company itself, the visitors to a lot of those theme parks, all of that has gotten back into play. It's not just that focus directly on that subscriber growth. Seems like people are looking for more, and they're getting it when you look at that earnings beat. We also have Ford, we got Tesla, kind of kicking around some of the ideas that we're talking about inflation. Well, they're talking about, and specifically the CEO of Ford was putting this out, lithium, cobalt, nickel. All of these are going to be something that's going to be a bit of a challenge going into the future when we're talking about the EV space. Obviously, that's not just a challenge for Ford. It's a challenge for all of the above. Also, we're looking at these sectors. A nice move from energy up close to 2% early on. Communications up about 1.5%. Just about every sector in positive territory, but not everybody. Healthcare had a little bit of a wavering going on. Tech has actually doubled from where it started off the day, and that's what's kicked up that when we're looking at the NASDAQ itself. We look at materials also starting to kick up a little bit more. So Disney up 10%, that stands out. You look at that beta energy side of things as we're starting to move higher and higher with crude. Look at Baker Hughes, look at Marathon Oil, look at APA, look at Halliburton, all those names. You'll see exactly what I'm talking about, that outperformance that you get, that beta that you get from some of those names now moving to the upside. Paramount certainly stands out as well. And I mentioned JD, PDD, we've had nothing but pressure on that area. Those are starting to move. And we also, on the unusual side, seeing some of those ETFs seeing some bullish paper as well. That's not part of the unusual for us today, but certainly on the unusual side, we are seeing some in some of those major ETFs of China. So Netflix, Dow, Nike, Caterpillar, you get the idea. Across the board, again, seeing some nice moves to the upside. On the negative side, you've got Pfizer, you've got AstraZeneca, you've got Regeneron. You also have J&J and a little bit from Merck. So you can see, I mentioned healthcare with a little bit of pressure. Those are some of the names. Are they getting beat up? No, not necessarily, but certainly on the downside right now. And I look at Cardinal Health as well. Got two unusuals, and then we are off. Let me tell you this as well. John and I will have Rebel's Edge this afternoon. It will be on 1 p.m. We start right on the screws, right at 1 p.m. Rebel's Edge. We're going to cover 4 major topics. If John's able to be there, if not, we'll have AJ Monty jump back in. Once again, does an outstanding job as well. But hopefully John's got the opportunity to get back. We'll do 4 major topics. We're going to do 2 unusual option activities. People keep saying, where's the unusual? Well, it's here on the take. It's at the 3 and 3. And Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, it's also on the Rebel's Edge. Today being Thursday, 1 o'clock Eastern. That's when you're going to want to tune into Rebel's Edge. We'll give you that. And we're going to even kick around a little bit of sports. Today, it's going to be mixed up a little bit with some football, some NFL news, along with what we're seeing in Major League Baseball. A couple of big stories, 2 of them that are going to be really, really fun to hit. So 2 unusuals. First one, ICLN, Clean Energy ETF. We've had this one in the past, stock or ETF trading around 2360. We've got a buyer of 2,500 September 25 calls going for about 55 cents. These are being rolled up from the August 23 calls. So you'll see the August 23s getting sold. You're going to see these September 25s being bought. And that's looking like a very bullish, rolling up a bullish trade right there. Something that stands out certainly for us. Merck is number 2. Yes, I just mentioned a lot of pressure right now on the downside for some of that healthcare. With that move to the downside, Merck was trading about 88.70, 88.75 in that range. 15,000 of the November 90 calls being bought. Now, those aren't cheap. They're close to $4, $3.50 to $4. Why is that? First of all, they're basically an at-the-money call. Second of all, you're going all the way out to November. We have not been seeing much of this going out much further than 1 month, let alone a week. And this one's going all the way out to November. So that cost premium comes and is a big player on why that is such an expensive sounding option as we look out in the future all the way to November. We'll see how that plays out. Last year around this time was when we were seeing some very big activity in Merck, and then there was plenty of news that followed along. I'm not saying that's going to happen this time, but this was about the time last year before the big conference in Las Vegas where we had a lot of activity in Merck, and then we had a lot of movement as well. Folks, have a great day of trading. If you didn't understand what I'm talking about, come to Market Rebellion. We've got incredible folks here who can actually mentor you, give you an idea, give you some education along the way. Absolutely incredible team. We're very, very proud of them, or books or something online, but you want to know the derivatives markets inside and out before you jump in. It is very, very interesting, but you got to know what you're doing as you're doing it. Folks, have a great day of trading.